So here's my plan. I've got 4 brackets here, and as it turns out, I just learned something new. The little square brackets that go just inside the spars that are for the compression tubes are not the only brackets that are for compression tubes. There are actually some brackets at the outer end of all 4 wings that are also for compression tubes. I didn't know that because they're shaped differently and they serve other functions as well. For example, there'll be a hole here, and then the little round alignment piece in the middle for a compression tube. But also there'll be a hole at the top here, and this will protrude from the wing, and it's for I think it's for the interplane strut. And there are several other more complex brackets that do the same thing. They serve double duty as an alignment for the compression tubes, but they also hold the wires and maybe the wing mount point and other things. So you definitely keep learning and learning and learning as you go through the project. It's so complex that you can't ever have complete understanding initially. You just need to try to read the plans carefully as you go. So the instructions say drill the holes in the wings. In fact, let me just walk over here and show you. They say drill the holes in the spars for the locations for the compression tubes. Here, 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 and so on for the other spars. Well, I'm thinking that, well, I'm not sure that's the best way. I'm wondering if a better way would be to make the brackets first without drilling the holes for these locations, and then clamp the brackets onto the spar and then drill straight through on all of them. And they also tell you to ream them as well. So drill them and then ream each hole one at a time, all clamped together and clamped to the drill press. So I'm wondering if that's not the best way to do it. But I've already drilled the holes in the wings, and I didn't have a jig or anything, so I just measured as well as I could and then drilled them. So it's kind of hard to do it perfectly that way. I'm not sure that that's a problem, as long as I can get the holes in the brackets lined up really well with these holes that I've already drilled. So I've been thinking about how to do that. And what I think I'm going to do is, in this case, for example, I'll drill this hole, but I won't drill that one. I'll drill this one and then put it on the wing and maybe put the bolt through it. That's probably what I'll do, put the bolt through it, and then get the bracket aligned just so it's perpendicular and square like it should be. Then use a transfer punch, stick the transfer punch through the other hole in the wing, or the spar, which I've already drilled, and whack it to transfer a perfectly aligned punch to this bracket. I think that'll actually work really well. So that's the plan. If that doesn't make sense, you'll understand as we go. Another thing I'm going to do, starting out right now, I'm going to drill one hole here, 1/4 inch. Now make sure these holes that you drill right now aren't bigger than what the holes ultimately have to be. So I want to drill this hole and this hole, and then pound, well, I can't think of what they're called right now. Well, I'll remember it, but I'll pound pins through there, and that'll hold these 4 brackets together, lined up similarly, and then I'll just take all 4 of them as a unit over to the belt sander and sand them all to shape, just so they'll match, and more importantly, I think, so that it'll go a little quicker. It doesn't really matter if the perimeter is identical on all of them. So that's the plan. So let's see how it goes. Roll pins, that's what they are. So the ultimate size for these holes needs to be 1/4 inch. So I've got to make sure I drill the hole smaller than 1/4 inch for whatever roll pins I want to use to hold these together. And you can see this is tall enough to hold all 4 of these brackets together. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take, this is smaller than a 1/4 inch. It's actually 15/64, and that's what I'll drill with before I ream it. But I don't have roll pins that are 15/64. So what I need to do is take that out. This is 1/8. I'll use that drill bit for this hole and this hole. I'll drill the first hole, put a roll pin in it, and then I'll make sure these are still lined up pretty well, clamp it again, and drill this hole and put a roll pin in there. And then I'll go to the belt sander, sand that off, and then I could leave one roll pin in. Actually, at that point, I'll probably just drill each hole individually. I don't need to stack them up again. So I'll just use the 15/64 bit, put that back in there. Then use a 1/4 inch reamer to ream that out. Then mount that on the spar, put the bolt through it. Then I can use a transfer punch, mark that hole, drill it to 15/64, and ream it. And then those two holes should line up really nicely with the two holes in the spar. This hole then is not super critical as far as like an alignment like that. If I'm close on it, it's for the compression tube alignment. There's a little piece of metal that you'll see how that works. The compression tube just fits snugly over it, and it keeps the compression tube lined up. So if I'm, within a 1/16 or so, I think that'll be just fine. And then same with this one. I think the interplane strut bolts to that. So if it's really close, within a 1/16 or something, that's fine. Again, it's not an issue of having to have holes in separate things line up perfectly, or you can't assemble it. And you don't want to have to drill out the holes in the spar oblong to make this fit, because you get that bolt rattling back and forth, and you have all the pressures of flight, and that's bad news. Eventually you can have a failure. So those need to line up perfectly. That's why I'm going to bolt this one and use a transfer punch. Alright, I'll swap this out, drill a hole, put the roll pin in, drill this one, put a roll pin in, go to the sander. This is a roll pin punch. It's got a little thing on the end that fits inside the roll so that it doesn't crush. So let's see how this goes in. Actually, I'm not sure how far I need to go in with that. A little bit further. Yeah, that's pretty good, I think. Now we'll drill the other hole. As you can see, if you've watched any of the other videos, I got a new sanding belt. Actually, I got a couple new ones. This is 50 grit. The other one's 120. So I'll use this initially, and it'll take metal off real fast, so I need to be careful. And then I'll move to the 120 for a final finish around the edges. That's the plan. I'm going to put hearing protection on because the vacuum especially is loud, and I got eye protection on. Spots here. Got to get all the way down until we hit the low spots. this sanding belt is really taking the metal off. Chips all over the place. The aluminum's getting warm. Close. I'm going to have to stop in a minute because this is getting warm. Alright, phase one complete. I got these two long sides all nice and even. All the way down. May need to just get that spot a hair more. Anyway, it's too hot. It's getting almost too hot for me to hold now, so I'm going to let it cool off. I'll hit that. I'll get this corner. I'll get this corner and get that when I get the corner, so I don't take any more metal off of the rest of that. I don't want to take any more here if I don't have to, and when I get this corner, I think it'll take care of that. Boy, this 50 grit belt, whew, it really takes metal off. The chips are flying. Let that cool off. Alright, so this is all the hardware to assemble the wings. Got a bunch of little screws. Some, not as many screws, but a little bit longer. I'm guessing these are maybe to hold the aluminum. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hold the aluminum leading edge on, or I'm not sure. And then 4, I guess this is kind of funky looking screws. And then just a whole ton of bolts. Just regular bolts. Bolts, 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 and more bolts. We got different diameters, different lengths. Yeah, it seems like just about all these have mostly just smooth shank with a little bit of thread at the end. So these almost entirely, I think, or maybe entirely, are going to be bolts that go through the spars. So you got this smooth surface through the spar with a little bit of exposed thread at the end. There's designations for all aircraft hardware. And you got length, you've got diameter, you've got how much thread is at the end. Or maybe aircraft bolts in general just have just enough thread to put a washer and nut on the end. Anyway, it's spelled out very clearly in great detail, so you can research that. Nuts, nylon lock nuts, nylon lock nuts. These are some smaller lock nuts, bigger lock nuts, and then just some regular nuts. And then we've got 3 bags of washers. Some jumbo ones here. Huge surface area, probably, so these probably go against the wood so that the nuts don't dig into the wood. And regular nuts, or regular washers. So no lock washers because we've got the nylon lock washer. So that's all the hardware for the wings. Oh, one other thing. Right here, these guys. These are going to be what hold the little alignment. The little, actually I've got them right here. Little chamfer right there. The compression tube slips over this, so this will go against the spar, and one end of the compression tube just sits on this. So this just aligns the compression tube. And these guys will just go through a small plate and into this. So that's what these are.